we're live. Welcome to Salem's Live at the Loft. This is our loft service, or as some people like to call it, the real deal in the upper room. And I'm glad you're with us this morning. Since we can't be together at church, we're going to be together up here and in my home. And I have some Bill and Lauren assisting with worship this morning. I'm so thankful to have them, and I'm so thankful to have you with us today. I thought in a moment here we're going to move. I thought it'd be kind of neat to go downstairs and open Joni's dresser drawers to see if her clothes are all folded. No, we're not going to do that, because you already know her clothes are completely folded and ready to go, and my dresser not so much. Okay, now we got that out of the way. All right, so let's go over and let's start this thing off this morning with a song. All right, thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and read the scripture for today.
A reading from Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41. That evening, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let's cross to the east side." So they left the crowd, and his disciples started across the lake with him in the boat. Some other boats followed along. Suddenly, a windstorm struck the lake. Waves started splashing into the boat, and it was about to sink. Jesus was in the back of the boat with his head on a pillow, and he was asleep. His disciples woke him and said, "Teacher, don't you care that we're about to drown?" Jesus got up and ordered the wind and the waves to be quiet. The wind stopped, and everything was calm. Jesus asked his disciples, "Why were you afraid? Don't you have any faith?" Now they were more afraid than ever and said to each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." That concludes our reading.
So, an old sea captain was sitting on a bench, and this young punk rocker walked by and decided he'd sit next to him. And this guy had one of these spiked mohawks. You know, each spike was like a different color. One was green, one was blue, one was red, one was yellow. And he sat down, and the old man couldn't help but stare at him. Finally, the young man, the young rocker, got upset and said, What are you staring at, old man? Haven't you ever done anything wild in your life? And the old seaman said, well, I got drunk once and I married a parrot. And I thought maybe you might be my son. Wow, I see a lot of laugh emojis going up on that. Thank you. Another one. So today we find Jesus and the disciples in boats. They're out in the lake Galilee, and as they're crossing the lake, a storm kicks up, but Jesus is asleep in the back of the boat, and he can't wake up. And the storm is getting worse, and the disciples start to panic, and finally they wake Jesus and say, can't you see we're all about to die here? Why are you sleeping? And Jesus gets up, says, peace be still. The waves stop, and all is calm. And he said to the disciples, why didn't you believe that I was in control? Where was your faith? You know, when I was a kid, I was taught this story, and the way I was taught it was that this was a story that proved Jesus had supernatural powers to control nature, and that if I wanted to really get the story right, I would have faith that he had those powers. And that worked when I was a child, but as I began to grow up, it didn't make sense to me. I started having a hard time believing as an adult that this story literally took place. In other words, if I had or if someone had a camera and a record at that time could record video, this entire episode, and maybe even put it on Facebook Live, and we could watch it. There was just too many crazy things. I don't care how hard of a sleeper you are and how good your pillow is. If you're in an open boat, and believe me, I have seen recreations of first century fishing boats on Lake Galilee. There is no way you can sleep when waves are crashing over the side of the boat and rain is, hailing down on you. And so I could not believe this as a literal story anymore. And because I couldn't accept it as a literal story, I thought I had lost my faith. But thanks be to God, I ended up finding out that A, I wasn't understanding the story properly, and B, faith never means you have to believe in things that are unbelievable. Those two understandings changed my life. What I came to understand is that Mark never intended for this story to be taken literally when he wrote it. Right from the very beginning, this was a metaphor, a symbolic story that was going to give a deeper message to us. We don't need to try to justify it literally anymore. That's just a waste of time. What this story is trying to tell us is something much deeper. What it's trying to say is this: when you're going through life and everything is going right, things are happening the way you want them to happen, you seem to be in control, you have hopes, things are falling in place, it's easy to see God. But the minute a storm kicks up out of nowhere, the minute chaos begins to rain down on you, the minute everything goes wrong, the minute you no longer feel in control, that's when it's hard to see God anywhere. That's when you think, where are you, Christ? Are you sleeping? Do you not see that I'm about to drown here? That everything's about to fall apart? The great thing is, even when you yell that prayer in anger, Christ hears it and appears and simply says, peace, be still. And the rough waters of life are calmed